a lot of people think serial killers are these like, you know, these guys that come out with knives and they just, you know, they cut you up and stuff. But really, they're not. Most of them are everyday people that hang out and talk to you, and you don't know that they're disturbed. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
They don't know that you're going to take them home, you're going to drug them, and you're going to cut them up into 1,000 pieces. You know what I mean? They have no idea. You know what I mean? So that's the funny thing about it is a lot of people have this idea that it's like this, you know, you know what I mean? And
well, that's mass culture, sort of misappropriating people with severe psychotic mental illness and sort of painting a false narrative as to what, quote, a serial killer is, because that's what they, when you think of slasher movies and you think of quote, serial killers in movies or people that are deemed the crazed killer, there's a stereotype that kicks into your head, and that's not reality. There are serial killers that are psychotic and have severe mental illness, but that's not everybody. Look at someone like Ted Bundy.
Well, I think that's the fascination, to be honest with you, at least for me. One of the things that fascinates me the most is that, you know, when these people's family are interviewed, you know, after they finally catch them, everybody says the same thing. Oh, he was such a nice guy. He was so normal. I never, you know what I mean? So I think that's the fascination for me, is just to see the ability to live that double standard, that double life, where they're having a day job and they're doing their regular, you know, working at the grocery store, you know, during the day, and at night, you know, they've got this completely psycho life going on where they're, you know, capturing people and murdering them and doing whatever. I think that's part of the fascination, is just to see how they walk one way during the day and completely different at night, like Ted Bundy. Like, that guy is incredible.
Well, and for me personally, you know, I even growing up when I was a child, I remember going camping and, you know, caught a fish, and I was heartbroken because I killed the damn thing. I couldn't let it go. So the idea for me, you know, that's like, how can you physically get to a point where you can inflict that much pain on anything, let alone a human being, and then just go have a pizza later?
Right.
It does not.
It doesn't compute at all. Right. Which is why it's so fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
So is that why it's fascinating? I mean, because that was a question that I was going to ask you guys. Why is it so fascinating for us? Because it's not just you. It's not just Eric. It's not just Cody. It's not just me. It's all of us. We all are fascinated by these serial killers. I mean, maybe not everybody, but there's a lot of people that are. You know what I mean? So what's the fascination?
I mean, I feel like Eric and I have talked about this before. And one of the things that we do when we have the stories on our show about these, and we have whole episodes about real life crazy news stories where, you know, stabby cannibalism comes in. And where we were literally just trying to figure out what goes through this person's head that then made them do whatever crazy thing they did. And it's that need to understand crazy. You know, and crazy is probably not the term I'm supposed to use, but it's that need to understand and break down and sort of get the logic behind how people do these things. Like, what were they thinking? What were they feeling? What took them over the edge, you know, to create this new other life they got going on? Like, I think that's the fascination.
Do you ever think that maybe there's a part of you that wonders if you could be that way?
I hope not. But I think that gets us down to
what are you trying to say, Ralph?
You know what I'm saying? No, I'm just saying.
Well, like, that's the thing, is normal can't understand crazy.
Yes. Is there a little part in you that goes, well...
What keeps us all from being serial killers? Is that what you're...
No, I'm not.
What is the thing that keeps normal people from becoming serial
I plead the
killers?
fifth.
Exactly, yeah.
No,
well, I mean,
where were you last night?
Yeah.
Is my lawyer present?
Just the guys in the white van down the street.
Exactly. No, in all seriousness, that's part of the moral development that most, quote, normal people have, is they understand the difference between right and wrong. Mm-hmm. So they understand that I can't kill people. I know it's against the law, but it's also not a nice thing to do because it causes suffering, and I'm going to get in trouble because of it. Serial killers lose that connection, whether it's physical, meaning in cognitive, or it's behavioral over time, is they see people as objects, as like a pawn or an obstacle to get in my way to what I want. So they don't have that emotional connection of, oh yeah, see that woman over there? I have sexual impulses. Normally you say, well, maybe we should date, and then we might be intimate. Instead, it's, I want to have sex right now, and I don't care if that chick who I think is hot right over there wants it or not. I'm going to just walk right over there, and I'm just going to have my way with her. And then it's like, well, also, I think it's really cool if I just decapitate her, too, because that would get me off, so I'll just do that as well.
Yeah, that's it's like, yeah, cool. Not cool on any of it, but it's like, what point is it? It's like, fuck it, we'll just go the whole way.
They just don't have that filter between.
That's like a serious double down there.
Well, like I'm saying, that's what I mean. That happens. It's just that they don't have that filter between. I have these impulses, but we, meaning I guess normal is. I'll use that term loosely. We have that filter that says even though you have the impulse, you can't act on the impulse. So you find other creative avenues like music, art, and other things to express and get out those impulses in a more creative and law-abiding, lawful way. Whereas serial killers are like, fuck it. I'm just gonna, and that's why people are fascinated by it. Everyone idolizes the anti-hero. Think of the slasher guys from the 80s. Jason Voorhees, Freddy Krueger. People are going, oh, Freddy Krueger's awesome. I love him. The guy was a child molester who got murdered. Yeah. And you're cheering him as the hero. He's the villain, you asswipes. But people always cheer for the anti-hero. But also people like to intellectualize things that they can't control. Serial killers break the rules. They make their own rules. And people are terrified by the thought that, like you said, the guy that you walked by getting milk at the grocery store could have been sizing you up and down as you might be my next victim. And people are terrified by it. So they intellectualize it by studying serial killers, looking at documentaries, reading the books, that somehow it makes them not necessarily idolize them or sympathize with them, but it somehow soothes them a little bit. Not that it takes the threat away.
What about this? How much of it do you think is kind of a subconscious, defense? Like, I'm going to study Ed Kemper because there's Ed Kempers walking around, and if I can pinpoint his psychosis, and that motherfucker walks by me, I can go, nah, that guy seems weird, I'm staying away from him.
Maybe.
Is it like us trying to... I'm not. I just freak out over the stories, but I wonder if there are people who do that.
I'm sure there's some in the population that use that come from that point of view, where if I can understand it a little better, maybe I can do something about it, stop it, or keep it from happening to me or my loved ones.
Yeah.
I wanted to bring up a movie that I watched recently, and I think it's an interesting point about the same thing. It's called Dear Mr. Gacy. Have you seen it?
It's on my list. It's on the list
so
under
good.
Fascination, what we're talking about right now.
It is so good. So
that dude was ridiculous.
Crazy. So for listeners and watchers who haven't seen that, it is literally it's a real story about a college kid who was studying serial killers, and he became fascinated with Gacy. And he decided, as part of his project he was trying to do for his presentation, he wanted to try to get John Wayne Gacy to take a letter from him and write with him. He wanted to correspond. So he found a way to create a kinship, a friendship with the serial killer who was in jail. And it led him down this crazy path, and a lot happens in that movie, but it's all based on this guy's real story that he wrote a book on, but it gives you such an interesting insight. At least, I mean, I'm sure there's dramatic effect and whatever, but it gives you an interesting insight to the mind of a serial killer, which is the whole point of what he was trying to do.
Yeah.
And it is, wow.
Yeah, William Forsythe plays.
Yes. That's awesome.
Gacy.
John Wayne Gacy, yeah.
And he is disturbing.
Yes.
Because he has that way. He's on the phone. Hey, pal, how you doing? And you're like, yeah, he's not
it was
so
amazing.
bad. And then
amazing.
Immediately he flips to this, you little motherfucker, I will end you. And you're just like, dude, what the fuck is going on? And to know it's based on a true story freaked me out.
Oh, have you seen it already?
Actually, I watched it because Vicki said she was watching. I was like, what's that about? You can watch it. It's on Amazon if you want to watch it.
It's so good, though. But it really does get to the same point that we're discussing about that fascination. Of course, that guy took it a lot farther than any of us regular folks.
From what I did research, that guy's name is Jason Moss. And I did research. He contacted Gacy. He contacted Richard Ramirez, Jeffrey Dahmer, Henry Lee Lucas, and Charles Manson. He was corresponding. Like, this dude went deep. Yes.
And the conversations, and I mean, through the movie, he really was trying to understand how Gacy used psychology to lure his victims and to get that sense of security with people, and then flipped on them.
Right.
And, you know, throughout the story, I mean, basically he does it to him. And so he really learns, you know, how manipulative. And that's the thing that I think is so interesting about Gacy, about Bundy, about a lot of these, Manson, just the way they are able to manipulate people into changing completely into whatever they're trying to get them to do.
Yeah, it's like they turn into, well, like he did in the thing. You know, Gacy, again, sexual attraction is sexual attraction. Why does it have to be here? These are fake handcuffs, and now you're not fake handcuffs, and it's like, what the fuck, man?
Right.
Like,
how did you fall for that?
Well, not only that, but like, Gacy, could you guys not just bone? Was it that big a deal that you had to go that far with it?
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And so that's the other thing that just freaks me out.